Hey, it's Chris here from Bow River Troutfitters, and we are coming to you from just one of the most unique and amazing places I've ever been in my entire life. We're out here at Aylmer Lake Lodge. This is on Aylmer Lake. It's in Rock Nest Bay, the actual lodge. Rick and I are out here fishing. We're targeting grayling and huge lake trout. We're having a great time. We've been fishing for the last few days here, and Rick would describe this whole place as magnificent desolation. It really is stark and it's barren, but it's also beautiful. I mean, there's just amazing terrain, and we're very fortunate to be out here. Now, out at Aylmer Lake, what's really amazing about this landscape, there's just fresh water as far as the eye can see from the float plane. And you know, there's fish out here and land out here that have honestly never been touched by human hands. Now, Patty and Kevin, they're the owners of Aylmer Lake Lodge, and they've been out here now for about 6 or 7 years. And they're slowly trying to explore all of this territory. It really is that vast. Now, the unique thing about it is you can come out here and fish in places that humans have just never fished before. And that's really a very unique and incredible experience. Now, as fly anglers at Bow River Troutfitters, we firmly believe that you can target any species of fish on this planet effectively with fly gear. You know, and there's this talk that it's impossible to catch lake trout on fly gear, and it's absolutely not true. We really wanted to come out here. Kevin wanted to bring us out here to help dispel that myth, because it is absolutely possible. We've had some fantastic success over these last 3 days, and it's not just about fishing lake trout on boats. We've actually had fantastic shore fishing, and we've also had incredibly surprising success at the dry fly game out here. You've got some incredible dry fly water, some incredible dry fly action to be had, stuff that I would never expect would be possible in landscape like this. So Rick is going to come on next. He's going to talk about gear that you can use out here and flies for awesome dry fly.
Hi, it's Rick here. I want to talk to you about dry fly fishing for Arctic grayling and lake trout. Here on this unnamed river flowing into Aylmer Lake, we've been fishing for Arctic grayling. This is a freestone river. You'll look at here, we have lots of pocket water. We have riffles and drops and pools. The grayling are holding generally below the riffles. They're holding in the faster water. They're holding behind boulders. This is a very typical freestone river. We don't have any trees sheltering the water or anything like that, but you can fish this with a standard configuration that most of you are already familiar with. We're using light rods here, 4 and 5 weight rods, floating lines, small floating dry flies, caddis, stimulators, even grasshoppers, even though there isn't a grasshopper within 2,000 miles of here. You could probably fish a mosquito pattern if you wanted to. There are a few of those around. So dry fly selection and presentation. We would recommend that you use a fairly buoyant and fairly dry, high floating fly. We have found that grayling prefer an animated presentation where we introduce drag and movement to the fly on the water. You'll also be fishing in some fairly fast moving water at times. So a high floating and bushy fly is a good tactic to present to these fish. In addition, leader selection should include probably heavier tippet than you're used to using for dry flies. There are some very large grayling in this river, and you don't want to miss an opportunity to catch the grayling of your lifetime. In fact, most of these fish have probably never seen a fly in their entire lives. There are also grayling in the lake. We had an absolutely tremendous chironomid hatch here the last couple of days, and we found pods of grayling rising consistently in the shallow water. We were not fishing chironomids to them. In fact, we were presenting larger flies to them, and the grayling were taking those very readily. Mixed into those, in fact, we were also catching small lake trout rising to the same mats of chironomids in the water. We have had a tremendous time fishing in pinch points on the lake, fishing river mouths with surface flies for lake trout, even in fairly deep water. The lake trout are tremendously eager to hit the flies on the surface. They will rocket up from 15 or 20 foot water depths to take flies on there, jumping clear of the water to that. You've probably heard and maybe thought so yourself that you can't target lake trout with dry flies. And I want to declare that you can, and that you could probably come to this beautiful location and spend your entire trip fishing with dry flies for lake trout and have an excellent time. Chris is going to talk to you now about targeting lake trout in deeper water with streamer and sinking lines.
So the first thing to understand about Aylmer Lake is that this is quite unique insofar as this lake is above the tree line and the water never really gets warmer than 56 or 57 degrees. Now, what that means is that the lake doesn't turn over like a warmer lake will, and the fish will always stay close to the surface, or at least you can always find fish at the surface. I think a lot of classic lake trout fishermen expect those lake trout to disappear down into the depths in the summertime, thus making it very difficult or impossible to catch it on fly gear. But Aylmer Lake is unique in that you always have access to fish. I was catching lake trout on the streamer, literally 6 inches under the water in some cases, pulling up off of a fast movement in the boat. The fly would come up to the top and effectively troll on top, and fish would hit it there. We were even catching fish 5 feet water column over 90 or 100 feet of water. So the fact is you will have access to trout no matter where you're going to fish in the column, and you can absolutely reach it with streamers on fly rods. Now, when it comes to flies, we experimented a lot over these last few days, and I would say this: certainly you want flies that are easy casting. You know, predator fibers, craft fur, these all work, but you don't want anything that gets too waterlogged. So we like sparse flies. They don't even have to be large, is what we found. We certainly threw some large 6 and 7 inch flies, which worked fine. And there is a lot to be said for a bigger fly will get you a bigger fish, but to be honest, we were catching some nice large fish on smaller streamers as well. I think that flash and tinsel are very, very important, and it is worth trying different colors, but you really want to grab their attention. Water clarity here, you can easily see 30 plus feet in good conditions. So something with good vibrancy, lots of flash, try copper colors, try white patterns, blues worked really well, and definitely orange and chartreuse were also good colors. Frankly though, I think you could experiment with many different kinds of flies and get them out there, and you'll probably hit fish, no problem. We did also experiment with weight, sometimes putting split shot on, or flies with sculpin heads or dumbbell eyes. Those can be very good to give a different kind of action, a different kind of jigging action. It still really does pay to experiment, change out your flies when things are getting a little bit quiet, and see if that reinvigorates the bite. Now, when these fish take, sometimes they are aggressive takes where they'll grab the fly, smack it, but to be honest, the vast majority of takes here are actually very gentle. We find these lakers will nip a lot at the back of the fly. They'll just hit the tail or tap it a few times. Often the bigger fish will smack the fly or knock it and then try to stun it so they can come back and then take a real hit. So a few things on that. First off, stinger hooks I personally found to be incredibly useful. It's not always necessary, but often we would catch fish on the stinger, and it's nice when they're taking those small nips to help you get that hookup rate. On top of that, I would say that if you do get some of these nibbles and takes, it's often a really good technique to then let the fly go dead. Give it some slack or keep it still in the water if you're stripping, and see if that fish will then really come back and hammer it. That more often than not worked really, really well. For presentations, often we're just casting as far as we can off the boat into likely water and stripping back, varying our strips, sometimes slow, sometimes quick. Gives you something to do while you're out there. Try different retrieves. The fish seem to respond to many different kinds. Yes, you can absolutely troll flies too, and that can be very effective. If the boat's going to move down to better water, throw your lines in there, pull out some line off the reel, and troll the thing. That actually covers a lot of water and can get you a lot of nice fish. A jigging action can work well. If you're drifting past a sound and it's pretty slow water, get those heavy weighted flies down and pop them through. You can try many different ways to fish, and you can fish them however you like. We had success with all of those. The one consistent thing I would say, although you'll find fish everywhere in this lake in every kind of water, we did have good success with drop off. So we really started to focus on that. You find where the water goes from 4 or 8 feet and then drops very quick into 15, 20, or 30 feet of water. We often found a lot of fish waiting at those drop-offs to try to ambush prey. That's a great place to look. So the last thing I just want to mention, and Rick kind of touched on this too, these fish are not leader shy. So when it came to streamers, we were tying on 3 or 4 feet of 20 to 25 pound fluorocarbon, really strong. We didn't break off any fish. And it really does let you put a lot of pressure on those big fish. And that is super important. You know, using the butt section of the rod, putting that strong pressure on them, and really fighting them hard. And I had some epic fights. I mean, they were great. These are the largest fish that I have ever personally caught and tangled with. And it was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. But of course, as fly fishermen, even though there are an astounding number of fish in this lake and so much water here that's never even been close to explored, you think about how many fish would actually exist in all these watersheds. It's mind-boggling. It's astronomical. But we still want to take care of these fish. We still want to release them healthy. So fight them quick, pull them in. We really liked having those strong leaders and those rods with backbone to do that quickly. But we did have a really good time out here in the Northwest Territories. What we're going to do now is get on the float plane, fly out of here, head back to Yellowknife, and then we'll conclude our video. All right, so we just got off the float plane. We're back here in Yellowknife, and we had a great trip, hey?
We did. We had we arrived yesterday afternoon on the flight out from Aylmer. It's a 2-hour flight by float plane, both in and out. We were able to arrange our trip so that we had a day here to spend in Yellowknife and sort of close things out with you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful view, and it's a little windy up here, so please bear with that in the video. But, you know, I think the most amazing thing about Aylmer Lake Lodge is, first off, it's not just for fishing. I mean, you can hike, you can take photographs. It's a stark beauty that I think very few people actually get to experience. And when you're out there, you are just in silence, right? It's just beautiful. You get away from everything.
There's a really good history of exploration in the area that you can follow and look up, and it will really engage all of your senses to be there. It really does. It's never been commercially fished. It's never had netting. It's never even had Aboriginal habitation in this area. It is an untouched wilderness.
It really is. And of course that does mean that the fish don't see flies, they don't see people. So it really is a unique fishery. And you also have beautiful opportunities to photograph. We saw gorgeous thunderstorm shows and, you know, just expanses and nature. It smells wonderful out there. And the mosquitoes aren't too bad, are they, Rick?
It varies according to the time of day. Supper time is a bad time. Early morning is bad. On the water, there's none.
Now, of course, this country is primarily fished with spinning gear, hey? So how do we do with our fly rods?
We did really well. It's important to acknowledge that spin anglers, gear anglers, will probably catch more fish and outperform in size and numbers than fly anglers. However, as fly anglers, we seek out quality of experience, and that's something I thought we found. We were able to target fish with dry flies. We were able to throw large streamers with sinking lines. Some of us even trolled for lake trout with fly rods.
To great success.
Some of us didn't do that and had perhaps a philosophically a better time.
You know, I think the key thing to remember is you do have a lot of opportunities to fish how you want to fish out here. I wouldn't want you to feel like you bring fly rods and you're going to be forced to fish like the gear guys do. Not at all. I mean, If you see fish rising and you throw a streamer out to them, yes, they will hit it. However, we were skating dry flies, we were throwing out humpies and caddis and, you know, quite small flies on light rods.
We saw pods of lake trout thinning for emergers at the surface in the middle of the lake.
Yeah.
And those fish took mice patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. You can absolutely have the experience that you want to have. And remember, how many places are there? I'd say it's a pretty small list where you can fish and throw out dry flies on 4 or 5 weight rods, and you will not catch a fish smaller than 20 plus inches. And you will
Grayling
catch
or
lots
lake
of
trout.
them. Yeah, you will catch lots of them. We caught lots of fish.
We did catch
They're
lots
very
of fish.
eager. Yeah. All right, so in closing, don't forget, your flies are going to get chewed up, so definitely bring spares. Those lake trout have sharp teeth. A comb would have been nice to get some of the predator fibers out of the hook, but you know, otherwise, 4 and a 5 weight rod I think would cover you pretty nicely for the small stuff.
Bring spare rods.
Spare rods, absolutely. I mean, I brought a couple 9s, you brought a 9 and a 10. That's about the weight you want to have if you do hook up on some of the bigger fish, eh?
Yeah, remember that fly rods don't have a lot of lifting power. These fish do like to stay deep. When you start getting the fish close to the boat, if you are fishing from a boat, you're going to have to keep a mind's eye to the way you're treating the tip of your fly rod.
Yeah, which just makes it more fun. Actually, there's a lot of ninja moves and rods going, you know, down low and trying to keep that working in the butt section of the rod. But otherwise, you know, remember there's so much history out here. It is definitely an experience beyond just the fishing. Our hosts, Kevin and Patty, were fantastic. They took care of us. Our guides were getting us out. We worked long days with them. They did a great job. So come out to Aylmer Lake Lodge. Remember that, you know, 20, 30, 40-pound fish, we had legitimate chances at a lot of those fish over these days. And there are 50 and 60-pounders in there that you can catch, and there are probably bigger records waiting to be had. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions, come see us at the store. Don't forget, check out BowRiverTroutfitters.com. We've got all the gear that you would need there. Ask us questions, leave comments below, and we'd be happy to answer them. Thanks so much for joining us on this trip to the Northwest Territories.